Earlier today, we got a press conference from Oilers GM Ken Holland, and it's the first time he's held one since before the season began. Obviously, a lot has happened since that point, and obviously his quotes from today started quite the storm online as Oilers fans reacted. Shout out to my good friend Bag Milk, who is handling the transcriptions over on our Twitter feed at Oilers Nation. And let's jump right into them and discuss what Ken Holland had to say. The first thing he talked about was the idea of making a coaching change. And he touched on Dave Tippett's job security a little bit. And he said, quote, "No, I haven't fired a coach mid-season. I don't believe in it, I guess. I also understand that there are times when possibly it needs to be done." So Holland kind of, throwing some cold water on the idea of a coaching change happening soon. But it's interesting that he did leave the door open a little bit, saying that he understands that there are times when it may need to happen. But he went on to back up Dave Tippett a little bit later on in the press conference, saying, quote, "In my mind, we made the playoffs the last 2 years. With Tip's leadership, we were in second place, and then the pandemic hit." So he's going back a little bit of time here in Dave Tippett's tenure in Edmonton, which I found a little bit interesting. And yeah, the team has made the playoffs under Dave Tippett, but they've also won just one playoff game under Dave Tippett, if you count the series against Chicago as a playoff series. So yes, they've been getting to the playoffs, but I don't think that's where the bar should be set for this team. The bar should be winning playoff rounds and going on runs with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So he didn't close the door completely, but it certainly didn't make me feel like it was close to happening or that a coaching change is imminent if they lose one or two more games. We got into some more interesting things after that. He followed it up with, on December 2nd, we were first overall in the NHL, and a lot has happened in 6 weeks. We've gone from one extreme to another extreme. I believe we have a good team. I built the team. Whatever happens is on me. So interesting that Holland putting himself in a spot where he takes a little bit of onus for this roster, which is a good idea for him to do. I mean, he spent a lot of money trying to improve the team on the ice this offseason, and it clearly hasn't worked out all that well. But he does make a good point. They've gone from one extreme to another. Early in the year, they were winning games that probably they didn't deserve to win. And right now, they're losing some games that you could argue they don't really deserve to lose either. And this has been said a lot, but they are not a 16-5 team, and they are not a 2-11 team either. They are really probably somewhere in the middle, and they're going to have to be that or better going forward if they want to make the playoffs. He talked a lot about potential additions as well. And the one that obviously fired up the internet the most was the idea of adding Evander Kane. He's currently an unrestricted free agent after his contract with the San Jose Sharks was terminated. And on the topic of Kane, first he was asked about reclamation projects in general. And Holland said, "I've been a manager for a long time, so I think the answer is yes." And that got people stirred up. And it was actually our very own Jason Gregor who asked him specifically about Evander Kane. And then he also went on to say later in the press conference, "I've talked to his agent. I know him very well since he was Pavel Datsyuk's agent." Nice little tie into the Detroit days for Ken Holland, if you had that on your Ken Holland presser bingo card. He went on to say, "And as the manager, it's my job to investigate every situation." So, I mean, he's talking about the fact that, he's talked to Kane's agent. That's news. We heard it a little bit yesterday from Dreger, but Holland goes out and confirms it. And that really has the fan base divided in a way. The idea of signing Evander Kane. On one hand, I mean, he scored at a 30-goal pace or close to it for 5 straight seasons. On the other hand, the off-ice issues follow him everywhere, and they seemingly have only gotten worse and worse as his career has gone on. My take on it is this. The reason Evander Kane is not on the San Jose Sharks right now has nothing to do with his ability on the ice. Absolutely nothing to do with it. You could argue that the reason he's not with the Sharks right now also has nothing to do with the fact he presented a fake vaccine card, or the fact that he was suspended for breaking COVID protocols in the American League as well. Sorry, he wasn't suspended, but that's what led to ultimately his contract being terminated. The reason he's not on the San Jose Sharks right now is because they didn't want him in that locker room. The players on the team expressed that to management. Management followed through. They wanted Evander Kane nowhere near their NHL team and around that roster. And that's why he wasn't there to start the season. Everything that followed after that is what led to his contract being terminated. But the Sharks looked at a guy who was arguably their best player last season and said, "We don't want you around anymore because we don't like having you in the room." I think that's worth remembering as we go on this conversation here. And if you're bringing in Evander Kane, it's on a 1-year prorated deal. And yes, he might be able to spark your bottom 6 or your middle 6 scoring, something like that, because he's scored in every stop he's had along his NHL career. But the other thing that's been consistently following him around is that he's also seemingly been a problem in the room in every stop in his NHL career. There were issues in Winnipeg. There were issues in San Jose. And Ken Holland in his press conference said, I believe in second chances, but this isn't Evander Kane's second chance. This is his fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh chance. You've almost lost count at this point. So it's going to divide the fan base. Who knows if it's going to happen? But Ken Holland saying he's pretty clearly open to the idea of bringing in Evander Kane. He was also asked about the idea of whether he would dangle a first-round pick or a prospect for a short-term answer. And he said point blank, I wouldn't do that. I think the answer is in that locker room. And I found that really interesting as well, because if you're going to talk about how this locker room and this team is good enough to be a contender, which is what the goal should be. The goal should be that this team is a contender. If you're going to say that, then you should be willing to add to this team and make them better and sacrifice things like first-round picks to make this year's team better. Alas, Ken Holland clearly isn't too interested in doing that at the current moment. We're better than we've been playing. I believe that. I don't know that I can go out and make a big trade to turn things around, but I am talking to other teams. And he added right after that, I've talked to a few managers over the last week. So Ken Holland is clearly working the phones, but he's clearly looking for some sort of solution that can be around the organization longer than just this season. After hearing these quotes, don't expect to trade for a guy like Ben Sherratt. Don't expect to trade for a pending UFA forward or even a pending UFA goaltender to boost this team this season. Holland is clearly still looking at the long-term approach here and trying to get him to bring in players who can make an impact for years to come. That certainly has the fan base wondering if maybe a guy like Jacob Chychrun could be a solution. He's younger than both McDavid and Draisaitl. He's under contract. He's proven he can make an impact at the NHL level. And if Holland's going to make a big splash, and maybe from his quotes today, you're not led to believe that he will, but he is clearly saying that if he's making a trade, it's not a rental. It's someone who can be in for the long haul to help this team. He went on to talk about, how many trades of consequences have gone on in the league since the season started. And that's a good point. Like, a lot of fans do expect Holland to just be able to snap his fingers and go make a big splashy trade that sparks the room. But it takes two to tango, and you can't just go out and make a deal out of desperation, because that's how you end up making bad trades. He wrapped that one up by saying the reality is that the solution has to be in the locker room or in Bakersfield. I'm working the phones. What got interesting after that is sort of, in my opinion, the definition of what all in means, because he went on from saying, he's not giving up high-end pieces, a first-round pick, high-end prospects for a rental. Then he followed that up later on by saying, I think we're all in. We're probably over the cap. And what's interesting there is the idea that, saying they're all in that sense almost makes it feel like Holland saying, we've added all we can. We have no cap space. What more could we do? And then he also threw cold water on the idea of pushing more chips into the middle in a sense and saying, I'm not giving up the first round pick for a rental. So I thought those two quotes kind of contrasted each other a little bit. He closed off, and to close off the trade talk, I'll give you this quote where he said, would I make a trade for a guy that's here this year and beyond? That's a different story. So again, maybe a peek inside or behind the curtain of what the Oilers could do moving forward here. The last topic I wanted to hit on here was the idea of goaltending. He said, quote, I think over the last 13 games, we've become derailed. We all need to play better. I think we need to get back to Schmitty and Koski, Mike Smith, Mikko Koskinen. Saying all that, Skinner is playing well and playing a lot. He's an NHL goalie in waiting. He's in a good place. And this shone light on a few things. One, I was under the impression, or I was at least hoping, we would get a move in the next few weeks that saw Mikko Koskinen go down, get put on waivers, and Stuart Skinner get brought up. Doesn't sound like that's going to happen. And that's really perplexing to me, because since December 1st, the Oilers have only won a couple of games. They've been with Stuart Skinner in net. Look at the basic numbers. Look at their save percentages. Stuart Skinner has been better in that regard than both Smith and Koskinen. I know Smith has been hurt, but still, the Oilers got results from playing Stuart Skinner at the NHL level, and they seem content with just keeping him in the American League and continuing to let him marinate, even though he's shown that he can win them games at the NHL level. So it's pretty clear they're not going to be bringing up Skinner anytime soon, but I actually think this shone a little bit of a light into what their goaltending plans could be next year, with Holland saying he's an NHL goalie in waiting. He wrapped it up by saying part of it is that we have to keep the puck out of our net better. I'm going to reflect back on my time in Detroit. In 92, 93, and 94, we scored lots and we gave up too much. They eventually went on to win Stanley Cups. But again, he was pushed a little bit on the idea of this team not scoring enough with McDavid and Draisaitl off the ice. And that really is still one of the massive issues with this team. And one of the reasons why he should be aggressive on the trade market, because it's not just one problem. It's many. Scoring depth is one, goaltending's the other, and finding someone to play the left side of the blue line and give them some stability there is a whole nother topic as well. But clearly, I mean, changes aren't coming anytime soon for the Oilers. They have one game this week. It's coming up this weekend against the Ottawa Senators, and Holland made it sound like, and the overwhelming thing that I took away from it, he thinks the solution is the room, and it's going to be on this team and this coaching staff to dig themselves out of the hole that they've put themselves in, because they're not sitting in a playoff spot right now, and they're going to need to start racking up some wins if they want to get back into a playoff position in the Western Conference. What was your biggest takeaway from the Ken Holland press conference? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk, and we'll chat again soon.